said in his opening, we are here to tell you why something needs to change regarding performance enhancement drugs and how we propose to make that change. The resolution states resolved that performance enhancement drugs should be allowed for athletes in professional and Olympic sports. Let me remind you that John and I are limiting the topic to major leagues and professional sports and only anabolic steroids for performance enhancement drugs. Therefore, the resolution in simpler terms states, performance enhancement drugs, specifically anabolic steroids, should be allowed for major league and Olympic athletes. Corey brought up that steroids should be illegal because they take away an athlete's integrity. Yet, throughout history, many drugs have had and overcame this reputation. Alcohol was thought of as immoral, and marijuana still has a negative stigma today, even as it's legalized in a few states. And smoking cigarettes is looked at poorly, but that will undoubtedly lead to lung cancer. Drinking alcohol, that can lead to liver damage, and marijuana can have many effects on your health as well. What makes steroids different? Statistics will show that a majority of athletes use steroids already, so allowing the use is just a practical step in the process of eliminating the negative stigma associated with them. Just to reinforce a need for change, and that the disadvantage that Corey mentioned between the hypothetical situation he presented between him and Lloyd of that one athlete will take steroids, one won't, and the other one could get injured, is that Dr. Lehman, based out of the U.S. Center for Sports Medicine, deducts from his experience that 55 to 60% of athletes already use steroids, so this disadvantage is already occurring. According to U.S. News, nearly 1 in 10 retired National Football League players pulled in a confidential survey that they had used now banned anabolic steroids while still playing. John talked about Victor Connie, the head of Balco, a steroid distributing company, in his speech, and how he validated the assertion that 50% of Major League Baseball players were using steroids. According to the UK Daily Mail, Conte also assesses that 60% of Olympic athletes in this past 2012 Summer Olympics used steroids. The negative also said that these tests, the way to end this is not to get rid of the test, but you have to have higher enforcement. But the tests are not working, and they have tried enforcement, and nothing is getting better, so there's no inherency to fix it. For example, the USA's National Hockey League was tested between January 15th and the end of the season. There were 1,406 tests, yet no positive results for steroid use. However, the NHL testing period ends at the start of the playoffs and only resumes at the start of the following season. That's a 5-month gap. Penn State University professor Charles Yasalis says of the NHL policy, you would have to be an idiot to get caught under a system like that, an absolute moron. These testing loopholes are also present in the International Olympic Committee's testing procedures. The IOC lacks commitment to discovering users. In 2000, it rejected new testing procedures that subsequently identified 7 Sydney athletes using a new steroid. The test was not recognized at the time, so the identity of the 7 known users have not been disclosed. Testing data shows that less than 1% of athletes are using steroids, but Ellie, a magistrate and head of the Italian Olympic Committee's legal commission on anti-doping, said of the Italian cycling team, all the riders are taking drugs. Accusing an athlete of using steroids is a huge deal that many people do not want to carry the burden of, so many of these tests are made deliberately old-fashioned so that athletes can manipulate their way around the system. The affirmative philosophy is that steroids are an athletic liberty, meaning that we believe athletes should have the freedom to decide if they want to use anabolic steroids or not. Our 3 main reasons are that steroids will, 1, boost attendance at professional sporting events, thus bringing in revenue. 2, athletes should have control of their own body. And 3, will even the playing field because everyone has an equal access to anabolic steroids. Someone who is not afraid of getting caught won't have a more advantage than someone who's nervous that they will get caught and suspended. So how will we do this? In the U.S., once steroids are allowed, they will be regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, and in other countries it's equivalent. The negative may say that not all countries have an administration like this, but I have examples from first, second, and third world countries across the world. For example, the UK has the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, Thailand has their own Food and Drug Administration, and Ghana has the Ghana National Drugs Program. All these organizations have the same abilities as the United States FDA. Like I said, I will use the United States as the example, which can be applied to other countries. So the FDA will first approve anabolic steroids for use in professional major league sports and the Olympics. Next, it will label steroids to warn users of the health effects, much like the Surgeon General warning for cigarettes. Lastly, it will recommend standards for how big of a dosage of steroids each athlete can take. This amount will vary from athlete to athlete and will be based off of a medley of tests performed by a doctor. Some examples would be testing heart rate, blood pressure, cholesterol, BMI, and searching for any previously existing medical condition. Any substance you put into your body will affect you in a different manner than the person sitting next to you. That is why there's not one across-the-board standard that will be imposed, but rather a case-by-case basis. If an athlete decides to purchase a larger dosage than the recommended amount, then they will have to sign a waiver acknowledging that this is not what the doctor recommended and that you will have negative health effects. Our plan also calls for a mandatory yearly seminar for athletes to attend where they are informed of the negative impact of steroids. The last piece of our plan calls for athletes who use steroids to remain anonymous. It will be part of a signed contract that athletes may not disclose information about whether them or other athletes are or are not taking steroids. They must refuse to comment. That way there's no stigma attached and no one is guilty by assumption. To conclude, the affirmative philosophy is that steroids are an athletic liberty, meaning that we believe athletes should have the freedom to decide if they want to use anabolic steroids or not. Our three main reasons are a boost in sporting event attendance, control of their own body, and evening the playing field. We, the affirmative, have established a strong need for change and have presented a practical and desirable plan. Anabolic steroids are an athletic liberty. Thank you, and please vote affirmative.